Thank you for listening to Return to Roots Mil2Vet Resource Podcast, where we document our shared experiences, stories, and transitioning and reintegrating from the military to the community. For more information, go to mil2vet.com. If you have little ears, ensure you listen to the content before you allow them to listen. And if you are in crisis and homelessness, suicide ideations, or incarceration, dial 211 Courage to call for assistance. Now, stand by for the sound of freedom.
One. Charles, welcome to Return to Roots. It is an
Thank you.
absolute honor to have you with us and, welcome you to the show.
The honor is mine. Are you kidding? This is a great opportunity. Great opportunity. Thanks for calling me and making this happen.
Our pleasure. Can you tell us about who you are? A little bit about your background.
Who I am? Well, how much time do you have? Because we could go for no. Just really, who am I? I'm a naval aviator who is retired from naval service. I did 28 years. That's the maximum I could have done. I retired as an 05. And, before that, though, there was another version of me, the version that chose to serve. And that version came off of being an Eagle Scout who went to the Georgia Tech to study civil engineering, got that degree, and then decided, well, a little bit before that he wanted to fly for his country. And that person ended up making that happen. And there could be a side story of, against all odds. There were a lot of challenges, a lot of things that I had to make happen. A lot of people saying no, right? And if you want something bad enough, when you get the answer no, you do whatever you can to turn it into a yes. Right. And then you keep doing that. And I did that, finally went through the program, got my wings, and had a great time as a career, especially flying. That's what I wanted to do. And then later on, getting more education and going overseas. That was really important, especially as a naval child, say military child, military brat, Navy brat, all those kinds of things. But yes, my father was also in the Navy. So I grew up in this kind of atmosphere. And that's basically all I've known for a long time. And I wanted to keep it going, that kind of lifestyle. I don't mind moving around. I don't mind experiencing new things. I don't mind, packing up and getting into a different country and learning the language and seeing the sights, doing my job, which I did after going to school again, and took my family, went overseas, and really haven't looked back since then. And that was in 2009. And we went to Italy for a NATO tour. And then I did a couple other staff type tours, really zoned into the planning roles and leading sailors, airmen, Marines, and soldiers actually in some joint commands before roundabout ending up in a very, I guess, the most odd job for my career, which was being embedded within a Royal Navy battle staff here in England. And that's where, my time ran out. I always said long ago that someone's going to have to kick me out of the Navy. I love it that much that I will stay. I had a lot of naysayers, not a lot of people I knew saying, "Why are you still in? You're losing money." All those kinds of, that kind of chatter. When you hit your 20-year mark or so on and so forth, soon after, if you're not going to promote, you need to punch out. Well, that wasn't me. So I stayed in and I did all that I could, and ended up retiring out of this job here in England. And we can get into the specifics later on about my transition and the reason why I'm still here, right?
Mm.
So that's who I am.
It's there was a few things there where you're talking about the naysayers a little bit there. Did you find the no, you can't, or why, or what? did that fuel you? Did that like just make you, did that fire the drive up, or like what was your fuel for continued success for you and your team?
So part of that is, I'll say yes, it was a kind of a fuel. And when I think back long ago, I'm talking, childhood, people will tell you no, or you can't do that. And you think, well, why? That person's doing it. I'm no different. I want to do it too. And then you learn through stages, trial and error, of talking to people, finding out the reasons, finding out the motivations behind it all, doing the research, getting told no again, getting told no again, and figuring out how to negotiate and turn that no into a yes, or another possibility. Maybe I don't have to go from point A straight to point E, like the other person's. Maybe I have to take a detour. Maybe I go A, B, and then to E, or A, D, and then to E. There are just different pathways. The old saying, more than one way to skin a cat. Okay, I'm sure it's gone out of favor, but the basic foundation of that is there is more than one path to where you'd like to go. And it's a work, right? It's a workout. It's a learning process, and it kind of makes you better along the way. So at a certain point, it kind of, when someone said no, it wasn't like that was the fuel. It was like, oh, really? No? Watch.
So it turned into more of a resolve.
Yes, like a challenge. Like, oh, you want to tell me no? Watch. I'll be back, and the answer will be yes.
So with that, why choose your transition to be in England? Why not come back to the States?
Okay, so there's a lot there. And part of it starts with that whole upbringing of being, the military child, and being overseas and not minding, and basically understanding that I'm a citizen of the world and I can go wherever I want, kind of to a degree, right? Politics,
of course,
passports, all that kind of stuff. There's more than one choice out there. That's on one side of it. Well, many sides to this, right? Another part of it was I have grown comfortable being in an area where there are multiple cultures, multiple peoples, multiple ideas, multiple languages. And you kind of get that in Europe. And I remember a long time ago, I think when I was in about the 8th grade, took a family trip to Florida, the Disney World experience, and went to Epcot Center, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved having all those represented countries there in a line that you could visit all in one place. They called it the Experimental Project Community of Tomorrow. I think that's what Epcot stands for. And I thought, this is great. And it's carried along with me. And my first tour, actually, after learning to fly, was an overseas tour in Italy. And that was the first thing I thought of the first night after I got there, and I checked into the hotel, and the sun was going down, and I went out on the balcony, and I heard all these sounds and all these conversations off in the distance, because it was a summer night, people were outside, and I thought, this is great. I like it. So it's kind of it's part of me to be outside of the United States, and I've learned a couple languages here and there during my times overseas, starting from when I was a child. So I like that. A really big reason, so kind of the number one reason, we're getting down to it, right? The countdown is for family. So anyone who's done time in military service, and if you have your own family, you started a family before and brought them into it, or started a family during, like I did, your life changes, of course, and they become really important. And you also recognize the sacrifice that they make for you to continue on, vice okay, I'm starting a family. I need to leave the military so that we can have this this other kind of alternative life. No, I was given the opportunity to continue to serve. That's what my family enjoyed and wanted me to do to be successful. And part of it's giving back to them. Short and sweet, I will tell you, I've got an adult child. She did really good in school. She wanted to study in London, which she did. And the timing was such that she graduated from her university within a month of my retirement date. So here we are all in the same country, right? And starting a new life, right? Kind of together. We only have the one child, and we didn't want to be an ocean away from her because she's not leaving. And another part of that is my spouse is European citizen. So it kind of that's kind of a pull as well to be in this time zone, if you will, for that the other side of the family, right? So there are a lot of personal kind of politics and ideas going around in there, but it's basically worked out for us. And I can tell you more if you like about how we managed to actually remain in the country. Would you like me to tell you now? Okay, sure. So, to stay here, you have to have a visa. If we went to the United States, we're all citizens, so we could go there, no big deal. But to be overseas, I would have to get some kind of a visa. My family would have to get some kind of a visa. Fortunately, because my wife is a European citizen, that makes our child a European citizen. So that's how she went to school. And so she had already kind of started the path of matriculating into the United Kingdom, whereas we were kind of on the fringe, especially a year before retirement, thinking, how are we going to manage this? And my transition actually followed a little bit of a different path, timing wise and preparation wise, because that big alligator right next to the boat really needed to be taken care of first. And that was, how do we stay in this country? And I researched it, and I thought, it's different. Every country has their own kind of rules for being able to stay. And the United Kingdom, since they've exited from the European Union, now have different setup, different rules from other European countries in the European Union, which would have been easier to do either in a European country, an EU country, we'll say European Union country, or a pre-Brexit United Kingdom. Yeah. So we're caught in the post-Brexit timeline, and this is where networking comes in. So I started talking with people who were thinking about doing the same thing, and a couple of people who were in the process of doing the same thing. And actually found out from another naval officer who he had a different situation because his spouse actually had a passport for a United Kingdom country. So it was a little bit smoother for his transition. But he said, you know what, I just went to this law firm and we made it happen. So thought, okay, great. Looked into it. Found out that a course of action that we thought we did not qualify for a year prior, and we didn't, that they had changed the rule on. And so then we kind of did qualify for it, but they were about to close the door. They started this a year out, and they were saying, okay, now we're in the late phase. You can still put in your late application, but you have to get it in by a certain time. So that's when I went to the professional, right? So went to this law firm who specialized in immigration kind of work, and we paid them to do their job, and they filed on our behalf, and it happened really quickly. That was in October last year, and by November 1st, we had gotten our pre-settled status. So, retirement date was May of 2023. It was only November 2022 when we found out, oh, we could legally stay in the country. Then, I had to make the application through the United States Navy. So my orders could reflect that. So that was another bit of admin that had to happen. But none of that could have happened. I was really close on having to make that press the go button on that. So I'm glad that I went with the lawyer and they got it done really quickly, and we got our results in November, because I really needed to have it done by that time, December timeframe, to put in to have my orders matching that. So that now, or at least back then, I received orders to basically remain in this country, retire in this country.
You'd mentioned that there were a couple other officers that were dealing with a similar situation, a couple other contacts. So other than, and it's a trip too, because a lot of times that's just how we network. It's like, yeah, man, did you talk to dude such as call signs, first names, whatever it is? We all know somebody who knows somebody within 2 degrees to be able to see what it is that we want to do. But were you able to find, or when you talk to them, did they have like resources that were available, like that people can go to? Are there searchable things? Are there searchable entities that people could, because you'd mentioned you were doing your research as well. Is that something that's kind of knowledge, or is it tribal knowledge, or is it public knowledge, kind of thing? Or is it just one of those, you see what I'm trying to get at there?
I am. And I will say the U.S. military community where I was stationed in Portsmouth, which is the southern coast of England, they've got a big naval facility there. There aren't many U.S. military there. Where I was one of 2 people in my unit identification code. So a whole 2 people were there. There were a couple exchange program officers around about the area in other commands, but they were a separate program, so we didn't really integrate with them so much. But I did get to know them. And actually, the contact that I was talking to you about, the lawyer who helped me out, he was actually a Navy lawyer. He was the PEP, the exchange officer program. So there wasn't a bunch of people there with a ton of resources to kind of sift through. And then being overseas in that environment, it was all kind of new for a lot of people. Even though I had a lot of overseas experience, most of the people there, that was their first time going overseas, and it was, deer in the headlights. Everything was a bright, shiny object for them, and they really didn't have that much experience except for what was handed down and the gouge packets that would circulate. So when I did research, I really went to again, this is back to the engineer in me, being pragmatic. I just thought, okay, I need to do this correctly. Who are the ones who know all about this? So I started asking, I think I went to the Foreign Clearance Guide, for example. I went to embassy websites and started poking my nose through there and finding out who to call, and then calling, and no, you need to talk to this office. Okay, called them. No, actually, you need to talk to this person and this over here. And then dealing back and forth with different time zones. Oh, no, you need to call Washington. Oh, no, you need to call Illinois. It's just, okay. But you do, yeah, exactly. You do all of those calls, and then you learn. Each call, you learn something new. You jot it down, you start piecing things together, and then all of a sudden someone does hand you something, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I've been spinning my wheels when all I had to do was, go to a local immigration lawyer. But I didn't think of those things because, it's not something that I had experience with. But again, you start with the main resources that are out there to help, the public knowledge kinds of things. And United Kingdom has a really good website, uk.gov, and you can find all kinds of help there and assistance and resources on pretty much any topic for the country. That and talking to your network, as small as it was here, and then trying to branch out. There are a lot of groups out there. For example, Facebook has, probably more groups than I have fingers and toes on. Retiring overseas, but they're differently focused, right? LinkedIn, you can always throw out the question in there, and there are groups within LinkedIn, for example, and groups within other social media, and call your old buddy. You never know where it's going to lead. So I tried to, at a certain point about the August timeframe, I was pulling all the strings I could to see what would come out, right?
And so I'm glad that you brought up the whole LinkedIn and the network. First off, what is networking to you? What does that mean?
Yes, so I had this conversation. It's funny, I had this conversation with one of my contacts, one of my connections, just last week. Networking is, a long time ago, if you asked me this question, it was going around and schmoozing people on the golf course, or trying to rub elbows with the right people. That's the image that's put in your mind by probably Hollywood and television, right? And but networking is really just getting to know people and learning about them and having them learn about you, and then supporting them, being the first to, from your perspective, wanting to be the first to support them and help them, and forming that trust and building a relationship where the relationship is I don't want to say symbiotic, but I mean it's codependent. Not codependent. That's the word. Dependent is the wrong word. Mutually respected.
Right.
Right.
You're helping each other out.
Yeah, helping each other out. And one of my contacts put out a nice post about how to network and that you need to do it. You can't be alone, especially on this platform, LinkedIn. Otherwise, you'll just disappear. You won't appear. And I wrote back to him and I said, yes, you're exactly right. You need to network. And to me, even though you're in a virtual environment, an online social media environment, and we're talking, the subject was how to make a connection. Send a note, don't send a note, that kind of thing. And I said, well, think of it this way. Networking on LinkedIn, when you don't know anybody, it's like you're invited to that party or event, and you show up and you don't know anyone. You don't know anyone. You just see them. And hitting connect without sending a little note is like making a little paper airplane, writing, will you connect with me? Yes or no on it. And then just shooting it across the room at them. Is that really going to work? Is they're going to think, oh, okay, no. But if you walk up to somebody, introduce yourself, I noticed you're, wearing a lapel pin that says whatever, ABC Nation. I'm a fan of ABC Nation. And you get to talk, you strike up a conversation based on something you have in common, or not. You may just want to compliment their tie, or just ask their opinion of something in the room. But at least you're starting a conversation, and it's you start building a bond and trust and mutual respect.
So with that, right, and you brought a lot of great topics about starting that initial connection, and you're 100% right. So, and I've tried it, and it's funny, right? You just hit connect. When you're doing it, right? When you're just, as you said, you're just trying to rub shoulders and trying to get your door in. But whenever you actually send a meaningful message, especially for someone that you've followed, right? And that's how you and I got connected to begin with, by saying, hey, I follow some of your content and I really like it. Would you mind if we connect? Would you mind if we going through this transition journey together, right? And that has made not only an impact for you, but it's also made an impactful knowledge for me and allowing to see your content and actually, I would say without any ulterior motives, just being curious about who that person is, it's a huge thing, right? And it brings me to a thing that you just recently started, and I'm curious to know more about, right? What
Okay.
is LinkedIn Hard? What does that even
Oh,
mean?
hard mode. So
Hard mode,
it's
LinkedIn Hard mode.
yes. So it's all the complete tag is LinkedIn hard mode, and the hashtag is just LIHM. So there's a contact that I made about a year ago. The same story basically, like you. I was, connecting, trying to learn people, and then as soon as I started growing a little bit bigger network, I started getting all this extra content, right? You get the second and sometimes the third degree connections of your connections. You get some of their content streaming through. And there's this one gentleman, he's a retired Marine Corps officer who goes by the name, his hashtag is Major Data. And his name is Albert Bellamy, and I hope he does not disappreciate me telling how great he is, but his content was wonderful, really inspiring. And so one of the things that you do, like you said, if you're oh, this is great, so you hit the follow button, right, and you start getting more and more of their content, and then you start interacting, because the best way to be noticed, one of the best ways I've seen, is to engage with people on their content in a meaningful way, because it's almost flattering if you make a post and you put it out there, and maybe it's your first time, you throw out a post, and maybe like 5 of your old buddies that you were connected with when you first joined up go, oh yeah, that's nice, you're like, oh cool, yeah, I got some thumbs up, awesome. But then maybe someone else puts in the little light bulb, oh, that was insightful. And you think, oh, really? I said something that resonated with somebody? That's pretty cool. It makes you feel good, makes you think, okay, maybe I should continue. But when someone writes a comment, they're actually basically talking to you. It's as if you're in that room and it's open mic night and everyone has to take a turn, and you get up there and you say, the best way to grow roses is to, put them in full sunlight and great, earth. And someone else comes up and says, walks up and goes, you know what? You're right. I did the same thing and my roses are beautiful. Hey, engagement, right? That's what that comment is on your post, because you get it, and then you can go back and forth. And maybe after that, when you get that engagement on your post, you say, well, who is this? And you click on that name and you go to visit their profile, and you kind of see who they are, right? And maybe it's more interesting, and maybe you think, okay, maybe I should connect. So I did that. I followed Albert, and I engaged with him a lot, and he kind of picked up on it. He liked what I had to say about his stuff, and at a certain point, he throws out, this is last September for an October start, he drops this challenge, says, hey, LinkedIn hard mode, we're getting to start this another cohort up. And by this point, I've connected with a couple other connections of his that we've been kind of like engaging, back and forth on his content and their content. And they're all chiming in going, oh yeah, you've got to do it. LinkedIn hard mode is great. It really helps you become a better content writer. And I thought, okay, this whole content thing is still new for me. I had just gotten back into my LinkedIn profile last summer, June, July timeframe, and started, getting reinvigorated with it. And I thought, okay, well, let me find out more about it. So we talked about it. We even had a call. Me and this and Albert Bellamy. We had a call almost like we're doing now, just not podcasty. And he told me more about it, and I thought, okay, I'm seriously considering it. And then he made a post about it and tagged a whole bunch of people in it, myself included, and said, hey, this is your chance. do or die. And I thought, okay, he's kind of dropped the gauntlet in front of me and laid down the challenge. So I've got to take it. So I did it. Not sure if my start was glorious or not. I can't even remember what I first posted about. But the point of it is that if you post consistently once a day, around the same time of day, every day, with original content, 30 straight days, and there are some other rules, like you have to do, like, original content means you can't just share something that someone else posted, and you can't just grab other content from somewhere else and post it and say, okay, I'm good. And then you have to include the hashtag of the LinkedIn hard mode, so it goes into a big repository of all of this. Everyone in the group can go and check out your stuff. But it really, the challenge is that when you're starting out, like myself back then, you think, well, what can I post about? You look at posts out there on LinkedIn and you see CEOs, dropping stuff about their company. You're like, oh, wow, okay, that's big. You see other people who are really good at their industry dropping stuff with these really, sage pointers. And you're like, wow, I don't know if I can match that. Well, it's not about matching someone else or doing better than someone else. It's about bettering yourself. The challenge is you look in the mirror and that's who you're against. And the deal is you can post anything. You can just post, I had a really good day today. I thought you should know. And that's it. But it's original content and it's daily. And it's at the same time. And then after half a week, you're in this habit of, oh wait, I got to get my post. And maybe you're out running and you have this idea and you think, oh, you know what? I should write a post about that. Quick 5 lines or whatever. But that's the challenge, is to get you to get better content. You're out there more, so more people are then seeing you regularly. You're showing up on LinkedIn is the term. And instead of being an unknown, you're becoming a known. And especially if people engage with your posts. And kind of the unstated rule is, when you post, you should be kind of available for about the next 90 minutes, not straight just sitting there watching the computer, but check your post every so often for engagement, so that you can give a response to that engagement. And if it's 8 words or more, they're playing with the algorithm at a certain point, trying to make it where the content boosts your appearability on the platform of LinkedIn through your first and second degree contacts, connections. But that's basically what it is. And so I did that cohort. That was 5. We did another one in the winter. LinkedIn kind of crushed that one because they called the hashtag, they were calling us a pod, which is a kind of a bad thing, I guess, on LinkedIn. Basically, the algorithm will punish you if it thinks you're within a pod where basically they're trying to curb people bumping up other ratings in a group setting by, okay, I write something, you like it, and then you write something and I'll like it. Multiply that by all the people in the group, right? Then you get artificial inflation. I get that, but this one is the 7th cohort that we're in this month, and it's called the final countdown because this is the last one. So doesn't say people can't replicate or do it on their own. In fact, he advocated that people just challenge themselves throughout the year. Pick 30 days. When you start, that's day 1, go, but you have to complete, right?
Well, you'd mentioned also the people that were in this challenge. You said they're people of the C-suite. It sounded like you said something like CEOs or CEOs or just like big hitters or owners or stuff like that. And once you get all those minds in the room, not flipping regurgitated content, but with like content of their own, it seems like it would really fuel creativity within the group's minds to be posting stuff for people to go. It's almost kind of like, speaking of regurgitation, ironically, like with what Denzel Washington had mentioned in like a motivational speech one time, he's talking about you hang out with 5 confident people, you're the 6th one. You hang around with 5 intelligent people, you're the 6th one. Hang out with 5 go-getters, you're the 6th one. Hang out with 5 millionaires, you're the 6th one. So being part of that group where it's just a whole bunch of people perpetuating excellence with things motivation, with trying to be better, it seems like that challenge only betters everything. From the way you described it, there's nothing that could possibly be bad about it when it's winners hanging out with winners. Winners aren't intimidated by losers. Only losers are going to complain about winners. Winners ain't going to waste their time because they're too busy hanging out with winners, so they can win more and make more winners. I mean, it's kind of mean sounding, but
No, you're right though. You know, it can become a mindset, and the group mindset is strong.
mm,
And you just reminded me that another point of it is to help you grow your own brand, right? So you find a rhythm, you get a sink in, and then you realize what you're good at posting or what resonates with you to share about, and then you get known for that.
you had mentioned that your daughter graduated, I think, within a month of retirement. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, you're right. But actually, you know what? Just to be technically accurate, it was within 2 months. Sorry. So my first day as a civilian was the 1st of May, and she graduated in July, first part of July. Yeah.
Was there, obviously she's got super strong collegiate roots there. She's got her people, she's got her crowd. How much did your family's ties to England there, or European Union, or to Britain, England, how much did the family's ties, how much was that able to help you out? Like, did it become a full family team effort? Say, hey man, we're going to be staying here and this is going to happen. I mean, that in concert with your immigration lawyer, of course, that you'd mentioned, but how much did that help out with that?
Well, it was a major factor. I'll say, when your only child says they're going to, this to location X, and that's where they're going to study and then find employment and start their life. That's pretty much a declaration of that's their location. And poof, that's it. I will say that there's been kind of in my family this kind of a love affair with these islands, the British Isles, for a long time. Even when we made it over to Europe back in 2009, we seemed to focus vacation time, almost exclusively, in these islands, and I should have, gotten the hint then, but no, it's a good place to settle down. A lot of familiarity, and when the family says yes and likes it, it's kind of an easy button, especially when you're in the position and the mindset that I was in of, oh, I'm totally going to give back. I retire. It's all you. And tell my wife, say you pick the location, you pick the house, whatever, because I'll figure out the other part of it. I'll figure it out. Of course, I'm still figuring it out right now, but it's a little easier when there's less stress and everyone's happy, right? Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you bring that point up, part of the figuring it out. How, compared to maybe retiring in the United States or a different place, what have been some of the pros of retiring overseas in your perspective?
In my perspective, and again, I'll reference back to the whole being a military child and being adaptable, and really where I live wherever I am. It doesn't matter. The pro is having the opportunity to learn another culture, see other parts of the world that I wouldn't normally see, and like I referenced before, Europe is a tighter neighborhood, then, I mean, one could argue that the United States are 50 different, kind of like semi-countries that are all united. I get that, and that's a great way to look at it. So, you think, yes, we are United States. We're not, all these different countries, but it's still kind of homogeneous, still looked at and perceived of as this one big country. And so the neighborhood is, look up Canada, look down Mexico, and you have to travel pretty far to get anywhere else. Whereas here, a couple of train rides and you can be speaking 5 different languages, right? And different cuisines, different atmospheres, perspectives. That's kind of what I like. I'm not saying no to my home country. We aren't saying no to our home countries, because again, the great thing about living in the 21st century is you can travel. Things are closer. I don't have to write a letter to my family and wait 3 weeks for an immediate response. So yeah.
We can do this podcast from you overseas. And
that's right.
Me in San Diego and Nucci in Oregon. So we're all good.
Yeah, it's nighttime here. I mean, we're 8 hours apart,
Exactly. So now with that, right? What are some challenges when it comes to the military transition that you have faced that you may or may not know the answer to, because you chose to transition overseas?
Yes. Yeah, it's not something that everyone does, but I'm definitely not the first person who's done it. Though, I don't want to slam dunk anybody, but for a while I did feel like I was the first person who's ever done it. Okay. Read between those lines. So that was the difficulty. Being in a 2-person unit identifier code away from not even the mothership. The mothership was actually in Belgium, and I had a dwarf mothership in London that, so there were many layers of incongruent admin hierarchy that I had to kind of work through, sift through, push my way through, really. Sometimes I ask myself, how could I have done it better? Well, if I had my crystal ball working, then I could have done a lot of things differently up front, and it would have been better. But I didn't. And so when I got here and told my first line of admin, hey, guess what? I'm retiring and in this job. I'm not even going to complete my orders. Okay. And, putting it out there. I said that, and my expectation was, all right, I'm on the radar. We're going to start moving this train out. Okay. Well, 24 months passed before any traction was really made on anything. And so I was, inside of 9 months staring in this barrel, of a loaded admin gun, thinking, how am I going to make this work? Because I had no support. So that's kind of or very limited support. We'll put it that way. I had to go outside the lines, experience dealing with chains of commands of various natures throughout my career. Helped me out. I dug into those repositories of experience and thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to talk to this person over here and this person over here, and we're going to come up with some ideas to make this work, because the ones who are supposed to be doing it first line have no really idea. And it's not going behind anyone's back. I told them, so look, I'm going to be talking to this PSD, now TSC, and their OIC, who, guess what, I know, and the other one knows this other person that I know. Network, right? You make a network in your career the same way, and you help them out, and you hope you never need them. But then when you do need them, you call them, and they're more than happy to put you in touch with the right people, get the right email back in Millington, to the personnel support HQ. Just yes, it was cumbersome and it was tough, but it was not impossible. It's not impossible. So one way to look at it, it's kind of like someone told me in the War College, oh, it's only a bunch of reading if you do it, right? Well, kind of the point there is there's an end date, and no matter what, things are going to happen at that end date, and that was basically the retirement date. So at a certain point, lights started coming on in some of those admin chains, and things happened pretty quickly. Imagine that. They knew some people too, and yeah. But I did have to put together my own, packages. I did have to solicit 5 different times to have my record corrected. It's not as easy to just whip up a retirement ceremony, for example. I mean, who's going to be there? The other guy and his family. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I will say, I was well taken care of in that regard. The Royal Navy staff that I was working with kind of understood that they had some experience with people retiring and going to, being at their overseas duty in, let's say, probably Norfolk or Washington, D.C., where they attended these kinds of events. They don't usually have them here. It's not part of the culture. But they did remember it for me, and they put something on. It was very small, but it was very authentic, and I was really impressed and appreciated them for doing that. And so I was able to get into a small room. It was in the Portsmouth Naval Base housing for the Second Sea Lord. It's kind of like the Vice CNO, so it was his house. We're in the drawing room. Not a big deal, for them. And then I had my my boss, a 2-star admiral, Royal Navy, be the what do you call the person who puts on the retirement? That person.
The master of ceremonies or the officiant?
No, he was he overseed the he officiated, yeah. Which was also great, and he's got a lot of experience. So for him it was just like, oh, officiating a U.S. Navy retirement. Oh, okay, and then the rest of the staff took care. I found a U.S. Navy chaplain who happened to be on duty there. I thought, what? Where did you come from? And then I had a friend who happened to be working at the embassy, still up there to come down and be my guest speaker, which was great. So, but the most important thing was I was able to honor my family service, and give them their awards and recognize them and make a big show of it, because that's really what it was for me. That's what it was for. It was great.
That's actually pretty cool, because you get all the stuff that we have in the States, and I'm not saying that retirements aren't important, because they are. It's a culmination of service to be able to display it. It's pretty cool. And I've been told on several occasions, like, when the person asks, hey, to go ashore for the last time, they do that, and they do the sit down, and it's kind of like their face changes. And I was like, what was that? And I was like, well, like, that was, the stress is gone. It's like, that was it. It's over, but it's not really over. It's a transition, and it's just like, yeah, that just happened over the last 24 or 28 or 30. But what's cool about what you had there is, it's not at all like performative in nature. Like here it's just like you got almost an obligatory, okay, yeah, retirement, people are going to be okay, cool. And, a lot of people, go to Czechia. A lot of people really believe in the tradition. Others like enjoy the time off or whatever, but that to have people from the Royal Navy or, the multinational commands or chaplain at whatever embassy elsewhere to come on over. And that's just really cool, because that is a absolute 100%. We wanted to do this for Charles, and that's awesome. It was not just a retirement. That's something that was really, really put on. I think that's pretty remarkable, sir.
Yeah, it was. I appreciate that. It was, bespoke, personalized, custom. It was great, and they did things that I had no idea. Like they did get a cake. It wasn't, the Navy Exchange, big huge sheet pan. We all loved the taste of that icing. It was nice, and they had some like some champagne on the side afterwards, and we could do a toast, and then they took us to lunch, and but yeah, you're right, and that, my gosh, you just reminded me that moment when it's over, and I had that feeling actually the whole time of okay, let's get there on time. It's kind of rainy. We had some snafus trying to get in the gate, family and people who aren't Royal Navy trying to get on a Royal Navy base that has their flagship, more to the side. It's one of those oh no moments, and just the finality of it all, sinks in, and when the captain, who was the guest speaker, was ready to take my request, to go ashore, I was like, yeah, I kind of didn't want to do it. I mean, it's just, I just can't describe it, but I thought, okay, that's because I knew what was coming next, right? And the ride's over, right? And you know it. It's like you've been on this awesome, think of the best roller coaster ride you've ever been on, and of course those rides are always too short. They're like 2 minutes. You're like, what? That's it? But this roller coaster ride went on and on and on. But then that retirement ceremony was, the train of cars slowing down and starting to pull into that station, and when you get out, they dismantle the ride. You don't get to go again. There's no getting back in line. That it's not just the ride is over. They took apart the ride and put it back in a box and shipped it off somewhere else.
Yeah, I've never heard that analogy before. That's probably one of the most legit, because that's your ride, and that's wow. If I could ask just my final question, sir, it's I know that you didn't do your whole thing overseas. I was about 60-40 or about ish United or US and overseas. What would you say? Yeah, I should have probably thought about this better. Obviously, you saw a certain value of being stationed overseas a bunch. I think personally, being stationed overseas, actually makes us better Americans. I think that we become better ambassadors for our union. But for the person who is maybe on the fence of like taking that overseas duty because you're scared you're leaving the country or whatever, or what do you say to the person who's apprehensive, or like how would you motivate somebody, and what would you say the value is of being stationed abroad, working abroad, working that multinational joint services thing? Like, I was looking at your resume, it's really, really incredibly multinational. And what value do you put on multinational duty over just the stuff in the States as an American service member?
The first thing I would go to is our advertisement. Every day it's an adventure. At least that's the one that I grew up with, joining Navy, where every day it's an adventure, right? It's something very near and dear to me, and I don't know if it's because I was a military child or the studies I've done, the people I've been able to fortunately get to know and talk to. I wanted to be an exchange student, but I couldn't. So we had an exchange student come over and stay with us when I was in high school. I thought about, because I wasn't able to get an ROTC scholarship up front. I had to wait and apply and go through OCS later. and I didn't know if I was going to be able to get to the Navy. So one of my shift pivot backup plans was, well, I'm going to join this Eagle program, go to Japan and teach English and live there, and maybe apprentice as a gardener, because that was something that I thought was pretty cool, the Japanese gardens. But yeah, that's, get ready to do something different. The benefit is immeasurable. And you really don't know it unless you gain it, of being able to live, work, play, speak, learn in a country that's not the one that you were born and raised in. And our country is, and rightfully so, thought of as probably the most, if not one of the most privileged countries on the planet. We have a lot of resources. We have so many resources that unless you know the difference, you would never know that how wasteful we can be, at home. I had this kind of a dream, this model. My mother would ask me, "Oh, what would you do if you were the president?" Or these kinds of things, or a leader of such and such. Well, for one thing, I would make it compulsory for every young adult, in order to fully graduate high school or their apprenticeship or whatever at a certain point in their life, instead of doing like some countries, you have to be in the service for a year, right? And I get that it works for them, but I would require a 3 to 6 months living in a different country, and it would be a program where, depending on your background and your plans and everything like that, there'd be a system to kind of fit you into, whether it's 3, 4, 6, whatever months. And guess what? It's fully funded, because the taxpayers will pay some taxes, and we'll just make it happen, right? It could get pretty expensive, I get it, but the real reason is to see how other people live, to experience that, to learn. There's a show on the television here in this country called Living Skint, like skin flint, like on a lower level, where they take well-to-do young adults, I'll call them, right, 16 to 18 years old, and they'll take them out of their home, and for a week they're going to live with someone who's got a lot less than they do, and they'll have to figure out how to feed 5 people on 40 pounds, $50 or whatever, and they learn a lot by the end of that week. Well, I would do that. Waste is really big, and I appreciate the time you're giving me here on this. One of my experiences overseas that I've had, when I was working in Bahrain, I was assigned for a couple of months duty in Amman, Jordan. And talk about a place where there is like a big gap between people, who are leading the country, and people who are not even leading, a cat down the street. And I heard about people who have about a liter, maybe a little bit more, of clean water to use every day. And so they have to decide, are they going to drink it, clean themselves with it, clean something else with it, those kinds of things. And when you see that and you think, oh my gosh, I think I threw out a 1.5 liters, the other day because a fly landed in it or something like that. Or I know I'm being a little extreme here, but I mean, think of the what you're taught in grade school. Hey, when you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water and brush your teeth, and then turn it back on when you're, why? Because you could fill up a gallon probably of all that excess water that went down the drain. That doesn't cost that much, because we know how to mass produce clean water. But those are the benefits of being overseas. It's the learning. You just never stop learning. You see something new all the time. Whether it's food, new way to make something, different views. What's kind of funny is when you learn from other people in other countries, the views that they have of Americans. And a lot of times it's not what you think. A lot of times it's completely not what you think. In the movies, they'll portray, oh, American cowboy, and okay, nice stereotype, thanks. But in reality, it's a lot different. People focus on things that matter to them, or like maybe the types of roads we have. I'll pick on that one. I was told by a British citizen once, you Americans, you have such great, lovely, wonderful roads, but you're not allowed to drive fast on them. Whereas we have these really outdated, dilapidated roads, and we can speed down them, like we're on fire. I don't understand it. But that was kind of the one thing that person picked up, right? So it's great. It's we're humanity. We're all really the same. It'd be great to break down some of these barriers and become a huge family on this third rock from the sun. But I joke with my daughter sometimes, like humanity will come together when we're invaded, right? Something lands here and starts eating us, then we won't care about political lines and religions and things like this. It won't matter. Oh, you're a human? Oh, okay, come on in. Can't wait for that day. As long as we're able to win.
So as an immigrant, right? I was born and raised in Mexico City, and then now I have my wife who's Japanese. I've had the privilege of not only coming into the States and into the school system and into the military with already a different background, and then being stationed overseas. And then not only was it a challenge for me to learn the American culture, but I embraced it. I loved it. I learned from it. And now, as you mentioned, to see that same perspective or those same things from a different lens and understanding from somebody else's background is just amazing. It's wonderful. Unfortunately, as you said, it's something that gets lost because not everybody has or makes the opportunity to expose themselves to them, right? And maybe it's because of the fear of the unknown of, if I leave my neighborhood, if I leave this area, what's really going to happen? What am I going to get exposed to, right? I think technology has been a huge help to break down that barrier a little bit. But as you mentioned, unless you go express it and you live it with your own fear, you face your own fears, you face your own cultural diversities, you face the language diversity, right? Which is a huge thing. You're not able to humble yourself and appreciate what you have here at home, and you're not able to appreciate what other people's struggles are to its second level. So, Charles, it's been amazing having you on the show. We're gonna shift it down to what we call it our save round and alibis, unless there's something else that you want to cover before we head down there.
No, it's been a great session. I really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. So with that, we'll move it down to what we call the save round and alibis, and Nooch will lead us on with the first question.
Currently, are there any books or podcasts that you're currently listening to that you'd find beneficial to transition or becoming better?
I don't want to kind of cop out, but I wish I had the time and the gray cells to find a good podcast and then listen to it. So no podcasts. Books. right now, the things I've been into are more study type books. And not a lot of them aren't even really books. They're like manuals or study guides. I'm trying to take a couple classes. I've been looking into artificial intelligence a lot to understand that and applicability in the near term. If there was a book that I go back to a lot, and it's fiction, it's not a biography or anything like that. But it's a book called Ender's Game. It might have hit a little bit of media fame because they made a movie out of it finally, but it was written in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was actually on the Marine Corps, the Commandant's reading list back in 1985, and I'm not sure it's come off. I'd have to
It's still there.
ask one
It's
of my
still there.
Marine questions. Still there, yeah. And there are a lot of reasons why it's still there, and those are the reasons why I keep going back to that book. It is sensational for understanding people. It is really great for strategic, tactical, operational planning. Goodness, leadership. Just the leadership examples in there are mind-boggling, and why I didn't devour this book, long time ago. I think it would have given me a big shift in my direction. But I do go back to that. It gives me inspiration. It gives me new ideas every time I read it. And I go back and forth to different chapters. And dealing with adversity is a big one. Underdog syndrome. There are a lot of touch points there, but I do go back to that one a lot.
So I'm gonna ask you a two-part question. Before you joined the military, and before you officially retired, the first question is, what would you tell yourself, your junior self, before you joined the military? And the second question is, what advice and how early would you start your transition knowing what you know now?
Okay. Before joining the military, so you're talking about a college student who was coming off of a civil engineering degree and wondering about first job, wanting to fly. Financial independence. I'm going to settle on that one. I would introduce that young gentleman to concepts of earning financial independence early, setting up for the long haul. And what would that have changed? I know one thing that would have changed when I finished with officer candidate school. The Navy offers you a $5,000 loan. I don't know if they still do that, but they would say, okay, here you go. And it was interest-free, right? You just pay it back a little bit, shaved off your paycheck, for a little while. Okay. I thought at the time, because I was not thinking about financial independence, I thought, I don't need a loan. I don't need to be paying anybody else back. I already have some loans out for school. Those guys are going to be coming after me. I'm not making but, a couple hundred, every whatever. So thanks, but no. Well, geez, if you could have taken that $5,000 interest-free loan back then, Mr. Ensign McKinney, you could have invested it and turned a very nice penny over time, over your entire career, for no interest, right? Those kinds of things. yeah, because it also took a couple of life changes for me to realize that an IRA was the way to go, back then. Anyway, that's what I tell him. The person getting ready to retire, you know what? As far as starting to and prepping for retirement and transition, I'm an odd case, because I thought that I might retire on my own 3 tours before I retired. So when I was the XO of the NAS Sigonella, I thought, you know what, I'm kind of at the peak right here. This is great. I'm in a wonderful community. Everyone knows me. The ceremony will be awesome. We were in the homeland of my wife, and things were like really, it was a high note. But circumstances changed as far as our daughter continuing school and so forth, that we took another tour. And I thought again on that tour, okay, I'll retire. Well, and then it kept going. So basically, I'd been looking at it for 12 years. I took a couple courses. There's a ruling course that I took. I did TGPS 3 times. So I kind of think I was on the right path as far as thinking about things and preparing. If there was something I would do a little bit better, it was make sure that my record was completely in order before coming to my final tour. But and understanding the value of LinkedIn sooner. I was introduced to it in 2011. My account says that I joined in 2011. I quickly, made connections with every person in the Navy and in service that I knew. So I had a nice little starter kit of connections, about 300 people. Actually, looking back, it was not bad. But the account was dormant for many years until I took TGPS course in 2020, 2020, right? They kind of reinvigorated it. In fact, I got turned on to a lot of connections, a lot of people in it. And so I started a little bit, notching it up a little bit back then. But then, new location, COVID, just demoralizing. Didn't give it any thought for a long time, until I again took my last TGPS class last November. And no, I'm sorry, even before then, I was reading something and then just got back into it, and thankfully I did, and thankfully I joined that LinkedIn hard mode. And by the time I was completed with that, I hit TGPS raring to go. And yeah, that's what I'd tell to the person about to retire.
The last thing then I'd ask then, sir, would be, well, taking a look, you had 3 tours there, or 3 tours to retirement almost, it seemed like there. When did you really how and when did you really get into the transition mindset? Were you there for like those 3 tours, or did it like really click on a finite point there? Like, how'd you prepare your state of mind, and how'd you prepare emotionally for that transition mindset, like when you knew it was out?
Yeah, that is a tough one, because I was back and forth. It was kind of like, oh, I need to jump into this, and then it was okay. Thank goodness, we can do another tour, and I don't have to worry about it. Putting it off for another 3 years, right? Oh no, let's ramp up and do it again. Get all excited, break out on my suits and things, and just to go, okay, again. But I will say that second TGPS course was the one that really gave me a lot of ideas. We were in the Netherlands, and I took it at an Air Force base, and the instructor was phenomenal. The people who put it together and ran it, there were a couple updates since the first time I took it. It was a great product then, and got turned on to not only the LinkedIn thing, but a kind of a clincher was a monthly record of my food expenditures, just food, right? Because that was a kind of a tough question for anyone to answer. It's like, okay, how much how much are you spending on food each month? Ooh, I don't know. And on what and why, right? So I got out my trusty Excel spreadsheet and I started tapping away and making a spreadsheet for food. And I had a column for, U.S. food, commissary, a column for European food in Europe in euros. And then when I came over here, I had another column for food in pounds, right? So I could tabulate it and make it, in dollars and how much of my paycheck is actually going to food. We're talking restaurants, groceries, little coffees, anything that's consumable, And it was astonishing. Sometimes, got it, holiday season, like $2,000 in a month. I thought, what? Are you kidding me? But yeah, we were kind of like, we had gotten a little drunk on living overseas and having a little bit of extra cash oh yeah, we can go out to a restaurant, a nice restaurant. Like even if it's just twice a month, you're still the bill racks up. So I thought, okay, we need to make some changes. But now coming into this leading into this transition period now, which started about super vamp when I got here, which was September 2020. I went into the serious mode of preparing for the transition. Once COVID was kind of out of the way, it really took off the preparations. But I'll say earlier this year, I had 4 years worth of records on food expenditures. So I could track for 4 years exactly the peaks to troughs and when certain actions were taken and the trends after that. And, we only spend a couple hundred, I don't say a couple hundred, I'll say like 500-600 a month for 3 adults, on food overseas, mind you, certain things cost a little bit more. And some of the costs, and I reported this to myself, I write off as contributions to homegrown life insurance, because we will spend extra to get olive oil, and we cook with olive oil exclusively. We will spend extra to get salmon, those kinds of things that are good for you, but cost, more than getting something that's in a box or pre-prepared or whatever. So that's my transition journey. And it's been, it's still going. People will tell you, you're not fully transitioned. You're not after you get your first job, your second job, third job, and until you're like really like cruising, you're really not transitioned. Because for me, it's been a lifetime getting into the service, and then another lifetime, 28 years, getting through the service. That's a long time. You could have grandkids by then, maybe. But yeah, it's to get back into civilian life, it's going to take at least half that, right? To the rest of your life, probably. So.
Well, that was absolutely beautiful, Charles. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the wisdom. We appreciate you coming into our humble home and sharing all this knowledge. And for our audience, Return to Roots. It's your transition. It's not all rainbows and unicorns out there. Make it count. Return to Roots out.
Hello, everyone. It's Charles McKinney here. Everyone knows I'm a naval aviator, and it's been a great ride. In naval aviation, we pride ourselves on being able to adapt and be flexible and compartmentalize. A lot of times that means putting the bad stuff away in a box before we go off on a mission or anything else important. Sometimes, though, that's not what you want to do. For those of you who don't know, this month is Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. These are two big things that we need to get a hold of. We need to grapple these. Mental health is very important. That's definitely not something you want to compartmentalize. Suicide prevention, equally, if not more. If you've heard 22 and 22, do it. If you know somebody who needs help, reach out to them. If you need help yourself, don't be there alone. If anyone you know is in crisis, whether with anxiety, depression, anger, or any number of situations, seek assistance by contacting the Military Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255.